Imagine you are sitting alone in your room, scrolling through your phone. You see people laughing, traveling, achieving things. You pause and ask yourself, does anyone really care how I feel right now? Have you ever walked into a room full of people, smiled politely, but deep down felt invisible, like your presence didn't matter? Have you spent nights replaying conversations in your head, wondering if someone misunderstood you or judged you silently? Do you often feel like you're carrying the weight of emotions no one else even notices? There was once a man who offered help to everyone, always smiling, always present. But one day, he sat down completely broken, not because life was unfair, but because he realized he was expecting someone else to notice his pain, and no one did. Welcome to Wisdom Woven, a place where we gently untangle the knots of the mind with timeless Buddhist wisdom. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or exhausted by overthinking, this video will bring clarity and comfort. There's so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% subscribe. So please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. And most importantly, drop your thoughts in the comments. It matters more than you think. First, comment Namo Buddha to stay energetic and stay connected with this peaceful path. In Buddhism, we learn that the self, the image we try to protect and perfect, is just a bundle of thoughts. It shifts, it changes, and it's not as solid as we think. The idea that no one cares often hurts us because we build a version of ourselves that craves to be seen and understood. But the truth is deeper. Everyone is living inside their own thoughts, just like you. No one is truly ignoring you. They're simply caught in their own mind. Buddhism doesn't tell us to stop feeling. It teaches us to stop clinging. When you believe you must matter to everyone, you suffer. When you realize that peace doesn't come from others, it comes from releasing expectations, you become light again. This isn't cold, it's kind. When you stop expecting to be noticed, every kind gesture becomes a gift, not a right. And when you stop overthinking, you start living. Stay with us. The journey has just begun. The empty boat, letting go of what others think. Imagine for a moment that you are in a small boat, drifting gently across a calm lake. The boat is empty, yet you feel its weight. It moves smoothly on the water, but every time a wave touches its sides, you react, try to steady it. You feel a deep urge to control it, to stop the waves from causing any disturbance. But no matter how hard you try, the boat continues to float, untouched by your attempts. The boat is like your mind, and the waves like the thoughts and judgments of others. You may feel the constant urge to control how others perceive you, don't you? You might walk through life constantly adjusting your actions, your words, your very being, all for the sake of what others might think. But if you stop and think for a moment, what is the weight of their judgments on your boat? Is it real, or is it a phantom weight you've allowed yourself to carry? In the teachings of Buddhism, there's a story about an empty boat. A man who is floating in his own boat across a river sees another boat coming in his direction. He panics and shouts, expecting a collision, but the boat is empty. There is no one in it. It was only his fear of being hurt, of something unknown, that made him act as though the boat was a threat. This is how we live most of our lives. We often take offense where there is none. We worry where no worry is needed. The boat isn't empty because it wants to hurt you. It's empty because the judgments, the words, the opinions of others are not really about you at all. They're simply passing waves on the surface of the lake. So, if you can understand that the boat is empty, how can you let go of the weight it holds over you? The simple answer is, stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Imagine the lake as your life and the boat as your own actions. When you try to adjust, to force the boat to be in one place, you're missing out on the calmness of simply floating. You are missing the joy of simply being. We get caught up in this idea that we need to prove ourselves, don't we? We feel that if we don't measure up to the expectations of others, we are somehow less. But who are these others anyway? Where do they come from? These are the people who, like the empty boat, float by without understanding the deeper currents of your life. Their judgment is not a reflection of who you truly are. is only a reflection of their own fears and insecurities. It is natural, of course, to want to fit in, to be liked, to feel understood. But there's a danger in attaching too much of our sense of self to these external forces. When we base our value on how others see us, we're placing our happiness in the hands of something that is not ours to control. This is where the true suffering comes. When you let the empty boats of the world pass by, unaffected, you begin to notice the serenity that comes from simply living for yourself. In Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness teaches us to observe our thoughts and feelings without getting entangled in them. We're like the man on the boat, observing the river as it flows around us. When a thought arises, we simply watch it without judgment. We don't jump into the current, trying to chase or hold on to it. We let it pass by. It's the same with the judgments of others. When someone offers an opinion about you, observe it without attachment. It's like a wave in the water. Let it rise and fall, and remember that it doesn't define you. This doesn't mean you should stop caring altogether. It means that you should stop letting the thoughts and opinions of others control your happiness. You can be kind, you can be compassionate, but you don't have to lose yourself in the process. When you let go of the need for constant approval, you make space for true freedom. When you live with the awareness that you don't need to be validated by others, you begin to realize that you are enough just as you are. It is the very act of letting go of the idea that you need others to complete you that brings true peace. You are already whole. Have you ever noticed how, when you stop trying to impress others, life feels lighter? You no longer feel the need to put on a mask or wear a costume. You can show up as yourself, without fear, without the burden of expectation. And the surprising thing is, when you do this, people start to respect you more. Not because you're trying to gain their approval, but because you're showing them your true self. This is the power of letting go of what others think. It's not about being indifferent or cold. It's about being free. Freedom comes when you release the need for approval, when you stop seeing yourself as something to be judged and start seeing yourself as a person simply existing in the world, experiencing life. So, what would happen if you let go of the need to control how others perceive you? What would happen if you started to trust that, just like the boat, you are carried by the flow of life, not by the judgment of others? You would begin to feel lighter, freer, and more at peace. You see, the judgments of others are like the empty boats in the water. They pass by, but they don't define the lake. They don't change the beauty of the river, the calmness of the water, or the vastness of the sky. When you realize that you're not the boat, but the one who is floating in it, the worries of the world begin to fade away. In Buddhism, this teaching is known as non-attachment. It's the understanding that we are not the sum of our thoughts, our possessions, or our relationships. We are the awareness that observes it all. And once we realize this, we begin to live with true peace, unaffected by the waves of judgment and opinion. So, next time you feel weighed down by the judgments of others, remember the empty boat. It's not real. It's just a passing thought. And you are the calm in the center of the storm. You don't need to change who you are for anyone. You're already enough. Let the boat float, let the judgments pass, and just be. The root of overthinking, craving for validation. We live in a world that constantly feeds us the idea that we must be noticed, that we must be validated. Every social media post, every conversation, every meeting, we're waiting for some sign that we matter, that someone sees us, that someone cares about what we say or do. But what if I told you that the root of overthinking lies in this very craving for validation? Imagine for a moment that you're standing in front of a mirror. You stare at your reflection, and with each passing second, the image staring back at you becomes less familiar. Not because you've changed, but because the person you've become is built on the opinions of others, the approval you seek, the constant need for affirmation. It shapes how you look at yourself, and suddenly, you're no longer yourself. You are a version of you that others want or expect. The more you seek validation, the more disconnected you become from your true self. It's a cycle that repeats itself. You do something, you hope for approval, and when it doesn't come, you begin to doubt yourself. And this doubt leads to overthinking. Did I say the right thing? Did I dress right? Am I good enough? These questions, these thoughts swirl around in your mind, creating unnecessary noise. They pull you away from the present moment and make you focus on things that don't truly matter. You may have noticed that no matter how much you try to impress others, the satisfaction is always short-lived. Validation is fleeting. Today, someone compliments you. Tomorrow, the words fade. And in the empty space left behind, there's a hunger, a deep yearning to fill the void with more praise, more attention. The need for validation becomes like a fire that never truly burns out. You feed it, but always ask for more. Buddha teaches us that craving is the root of suffering. When you crave validation from others, you're relying on something outside of yourself to give you peace. You're giving away your power, your peace of mind, to the opinions of others. You're allowing others to decide who you are, to define your worth. This is a trap. In Buddhism, the concept of Anita, or non-self, reminds us that we are not fixed. We are not the labels others put on us. We are not the judgments we receive or the expectations we hold. We are not the roles we play. The self that is constantly chasing after approval is an illusion. It doesn't exist. It is just a bundle of thoughts, memories, desires, and perceptions that shift with time. And it is this ever-changing self that leads us to overthink. The moment you begin to seek validation, you are placing yourself at the mercy of the world around you. You're putting your peace in the hands of others who may never give it back. And in this struggle to be seen and acknowledged, you lose sight of your own truth. The truth that you don't need anyone's approval to be whole. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to be anything other than what you already are. You may ask, but how do I stop overthinking if I can't rely on others to affirm me? It starts with understanding that the need for validation will never fully disappear. But you can change your relationship with it. You can begin to recognize when you're seeking approval and choose not to engage. You can choose to let go of the constant comparison to others and find your validation within yourself. You have to trust that your worth is inherent, not something to be earned. When you stop depending on others to tell you who you are, you start to find peace. You begin to recognize that overthinking only arises when you lose trust in yourself. When you start doubting your own feelings, your own decisions, your own worth. The antidote to overthinking is acceptance. Accepting that you are enough just as you are, without anyone else's approval. This doesn't mean you should stop caring about others or their opinions entirely. We are social beings, and connection is important. But there's a difference between caring and needing. You can care for others, you can love, you can support, but you do not need their approval to be at peace with yourself. You can listen to feedback and take it with grace, but not let it define you. There's freedom in this. When you release the need to be validated, you open yourself to a deeper level of happiness. A happiness that is independent of the external world. You start living in the present moment without the weight of past regrets or future worries. You become free from the expectations of others and free from the endless cycle of seeking approval. Overthinking begins to lose its power when you no longer seek to prove yourself. You can think without overthinking. You can act without fear of judgment. And this is where true peace lies, in the simplicity of just being. Buddhist teachings remind us that the mind is like a garden. If you fill it with the weeds of self-doubt, comparison, and the constant need for validation, it will become overgrown and chaotic. But if you cultivate it with awareness, acceptance, and peace, it will bloom in its own time. When you stop overthinking, when you stop chasing the validation of others, you will find that your mind becomes clearer, calmer, and more focused. The space you once filled with worry and doubt is now filled with quiet understanding and acceptance. You will no longer be at the mercy of external opinions because you will know, deep down, that you are enough. You're already whole. And in this peace, in this clarity, you will begin to see the world as it truly is. A place of interconnectedness, a place where we all share the same struggles, the same desires, the same need for love and acceptance. But you will also see that the greatest love and acceptance comes from within. When you stop looking outside for what you already have inside, you will find that the world doesn't need to validate you. You simply need to remember who you truly are. And when you remember this, the overthinking fades away. The craving for validation dissolves. You no longer need to seek approval from others because you are already complete. You can now live with peace, with balance, and with the true freedom that comes from knowing you are enough. The path to inner peace starts when you stop overthinking and start accepting yourself as you are. And in that acceptance, you will find a joy that is independent of the world around you. A joy that no one could take from you. A joy that is yours to keep. The silent watcher. Mindfulness over mental noise. In this noisy world, we find ourselves trapped in a whirlwind of thoughts. They rush through our minds like an unstoppable river, pulling us into the current. Our minds chatter incessantly, telling us what to do, what to think, and how to feel. But what if we could step back from that? What if, instead of being consumed by the noise, we could simply watch it without being swept away? Imagine this. You're sitting on a quiet hill, the wind brushing past you. You watch the leaves dance in the breeze, moving in patterns that seem both random and perfect. Each leaf, each movement is an impermanent event. Yet, you remain still, simply observing. You don't need to chase the leaves or control their movements. You understand that they will fall, only to be replaced by new leaves. This is mindfulness. In Buddhist teachings, mindfulness is the art of observing life as it happens, without attachment or judgment. It's not about suppressing thoughts or feelings, but about allowing them to come and go without letting them define you. We are not the thoughts we have. We're the ones who watch them. But why is this so important? Every day, we get caught up in the mental noise of life. The constant worry about what others think, the fear of not being good enough, the anxiety about future events. These thoughts pull us in different directions, and we lose touch with our true selves. We forget that, underneath the noise, there's a calm and peaceful presence. It's always there, waiting for us to notice it. When you practice mindfulness, you start to separate yourself from your thoughts. You realize that thoughts are not facts. They're simply passing clouds in the sky of your mind. And like clouds, they come and go. Some days the sky is clear and peaceful, and other days it's filled with dark, heavy clouds. But none of it stays forever. The more you practice, the more you begin to recognize that these clouds of thought are temporary, and they don't need to control your emotions or your peace. At the heart of mindfulness is the realization that you can choose how you respond to life's events. Instead of reacting immediately to every thought or feeling, you can pause, breathe, and observe. What does this thought truly mean? Is it serving you? Is it something you want to carry with you? Or is it simply a passing wave in the ocean of your mind? Take a moment to reflect. When was the last time you allowed yourself to truly just sit without any distractions and observe your thoughts? When was the last time you let yourself feel without judgment, just allowing your emotions to come and go naturally? Most of the time, we are so caught up in the demands of daily life that we forget to simply be. We forget that we are not meant to be constantly in a state of reaction. We don't have to be at the mercy of every thought that arises. Buddhism teaches us that suffering arises from our attachments, attachment to our thoughts, to our emotions, and to our ideas of how things should be. We often think that we must constantly act on our thoughts or make decisions right away, but this only increases the noise in our minds. What if, instead, we allowed ourselves to simply observe without immediately jumping into action? What if, for once, we sat with the discomfort, the confusion, or the uncertainty without feeling the need to resolve it? The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is not the thoughts or feelings themselves, but the attachment to them. When we attach to our thoughts, we believe them to be true. We believe that the voice in our head is the ultimate authority. We believe that we must act on every impulse, every emotion, every opinion. But what if instead we simply let go? What if we stopped trying to control everything and allowed ourselves to simply witness life unfolding? This is not about passivity. It's not about being indifferent to the world around you. It's about being fully present, without trying to shape or manipulate your experience. It's about being awake to the moment, without judgment or interference. When you learn to be the silent watcher, you gain freedom. You stop being a slave to your thoughts. You realize that you are not defined by your reactions, by your fears, or by your desires. You are simply the observer, the one who watches without attachment. In the busy world we live in, it's easy to forget that stillness is possible. We think we need to do, achieve, and constantly be on the move. We think that our worth is determined by how much we accomplish or how others perceive us. But in truth, peace is found in the present moment, in the stillness between thoughts, in the space where we can just breathe and be. The practice of mindfulness isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. It's about choosing to show up for yourself, to be kind to yourself, and to embrace the present moment, even when it feels chaotic. It's about noticing the noise, but not allowing it to control you. It's about letting go of the need to constantly react and instead finding peace in simply being. In Buddhism, there's a practice known as zazen, or seated meditation, where practitioners sit in silence and simply observe their thoughts. It's not about forcing the mind to be empty. It's about observing what arises without judgment or attachment. Over time, the mind becomes more peaceful, less chaotic. The more you practice mindfulness, the more you begin to realize that the thoughts you once thought were yours are not truly yours at all. They are simply fleeting events in the vast landscape of your mind. And this is the gift of mindfulness, freedom from the tyranny of your thoughts. When you stop identifying with your thoughts, you realize that they are not who you are. You are the one who watches them, the one who observes without attachment. And in that space, there is peace. There is clarity. There is the ability to respond to life with wisdom, not reaction. So the next time you find yourself caught in a whirlwind of thoughts, take a deep breath. Step back. Become the silent watcher. Allow the thoughts to come and go. Don't cling to them. Don't judge them. Just observe. In that moment, you will discover the power of stillness. You will realize that peace was always there, beneath the noise, beneath the distractions. It was waiting for you to notice. This is the path of mindfulness. It is the path of letting go, of releasing the need to control, and of simply being present with whatever arises. It's a path of liberation, a path to peace. And it begins with the simple act of watching the thoughts, watching the emotions, and watching the world unfold without attachment or fear. So, take a moment, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and become the silent watcher of your own mind, rewriting the inner dialogue with compassion. You wake up in the morning, and immediately your mind is full of thoughts. Some are about the past, about things you did, things you should have done, things you regret. Others are about the future, about what you must do today, the challenges you might face, and the worries that weigh on your heart. Your thoughts race, your chest tightens, and the day begins with a rush. But what if, instead of diving into the chaos, you pause for a moment to listen to what your inner dialogue is telling you? How often do you criticize yourself? How often do you listen to the voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, you're too old, too late, or too different? Every one of us has this voice, the one that brings self-doubt and judgment. It whispers in the quiet moments, making us feel inadequate or not worthy. But here is something important to understand. This voice is not your truth. It is just a pattern, a habit of thought that you have learned over time. It doesn't define who you are. It doesn't capture the essence of your being. In fact, this voice is often louder when we're struggling. When we feel isolated, disconnected, or less than, this voice finds space to grow. And without realizing it, we listen to it. We believe it, and we shape our lives around it. In Buddhism, we learn the importance of mindfulness, being present with our thoughts without judgment. But it's not just about noticing thoughts. It's about responding to them with compassion. When we criticize ourselves, when we let those harsh, judgmental words fill our mind, we are not showing ourselves kindness. In fact, we are reinforcing the very beliefs that hold us back from experiencing peace and joy. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in front of a mirror. You look at yourself, and instead of seeing flaws or imperfections, you see a person who is trying, who is learning, who is growing. You see someone worthy of love, someone who deserves kindness. Now, instead of hearing that inner voice of judgment, you hear a voice of compassion. It says, "You're doing the best you can. You are enough just as you are. You are not defined by your mistakes, but by your willingness to learn from them." This shift in perspective is not easy, but it is powerful. It is the foundation of inner peace. When you begin to respond to yourself with compassion, the weight of self-criticism begins to lift. And in its place, you find a gentle understanding that allows you to move through life with greater ease. One of the most profound teachings in Buddhism is that suffering arises when we resist reality, when we fight against the present moment, when we judge ourselves harshly for not being perfect. We create more suffering. But when we accept ourselves, when we acknowledge our mistakes without self-judgment, we create space for growth and healing. Consider this. How would your life change if, instead of judging yourself, you treated yourself as you would a close friend? If a friend came to you feeling lost or inadequate, would you scold them? Would you tell them they're not enough? Or would you listen, offer kindness, and remind them of their worth? The truth is, most of us are much kinder to others than we are to ourselves. But the key to transforming your inner world is in treating yourself with the same compassion and care. Buddhism teaches that our thoughts are like clouds. They come and go. They are not permanent. When we catch ourselves in negative thinking, we can simply acknowledge the thought and let it pass. We don't need to engage with it or let it control us. Just as clouds do not define the sky, our thoughts do not define us. They are temporary visitors, and we can choose not to hold on to them. This practice of mindfulness and compassion takes time. It requires patience and commitment. But the more you practice, the easier it becomes. You start to notice those moments when you criticize yourself, and in those moments, you gently replace judgment with kindness. You begin to rewrite your inner dialogue, slowly but surely. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. But what you do need is to be kind to yourself, to understand that you are a work in progress, and that every step you take, no matter how small, is important. It's not about being flawless. It's about learning to embrace yourself, flaws and all, with open arms. And when you can do that, when you can meet your thoughts with compassion, something incredible happens. You start to believe in yourself. You begin to trust that you have everything you need to navigate life's challenges. You stop looking for approval from others because you found a deeper source of approval within yourself. You stop overthinking, stop worrying about whether you're enough because you already know that you are. This is the power of rewriting your inner dialogue with compassion. It is a radical act of self-love. It is the foundation for creating a life of peace and contentment, no matter the external circumstances. It's about accepting that you are worthy, just as you are, and that your worth is not dependent on what anyone else thinks of you. The Buddhist path teaches us that all suffering comes from attachment. Attachment to our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs. When we let go of the need to judge ourselves and the world, we begin to experience true freedom. And it starts with how we talk to ourselves. Every thought, every word, every moment of self-reflection can either bring us closer to peace or push us further away from it. So, when the voice of self-doubt arises, try to listen to it with the same compassion that you would offer to someone you love deeply. When you feel the weight of judgment or regret, gently remind yourself that you are not your thoughts and that you have the power to choose how you respond. And slowly, over time, you will begin to rewrite the story you tell yourself. You will begin to live in a way that reflects your true worth, not the judgments of others or the negative stories you believed for so long. The journey of rewriting your inner dialogue is not an overnight process. But each step, no matter how small, is a step toward a life filled with peace, compassion, and joy. It begins with a simple but profound act, treating yourself with the same kindness that you would offer to anyone else. And in doing so, you create the foundation for a life that is free from unnecessary suffering and full of the peace that comes with self-acceptance and love. Detachment is not indifference, true emotional freedom. Imagine for a moment you are holding a burning candle. The flame is bright, flickering gently, but it is also fragile. It's so easy for the wind to blow it out or for you to get distracted and let it burn down until nothing is left. Now, think of your emotions like that candle. So often, we cling to our feelings as if they're the only thing that gives us purpose or meaning. When we feel joy, we want to hold on to it forever. When we feel pain, we resist it with all our might. But what if the key to true emotional freedom is not to hold on to any feeling, but to let them pass through us without clinging to them? This is where Buddhism teaches us about detachment. But detachment does not mean indifference. It's not about closing your heart, becoming cold, or pretending that you don't care. True detachment is about learning not to let your emotions control you. It's about understanding that emotions are not you. They're simply temporary visitors, passing through like the wind. When you let go of the need to control how you feel or to make everyone else feel a certain way, you begin to experience true freedom. It's a freedom that allows you to walk through life with an open heart, unaffected by the fluctuations of the world around you. It doesn't mean you won't feel joy, love, or sadness, but it does mean that you won't be shaken by them. They will come, and they will go, just like the seasons change. And you will remain steady, like a mountain in the distance. Think about it. When you care too much about the opinions of others, you're giving them control over your happiness. You are placing your peace in their hands. But when you detach from that need, you take back your power. You realize that no one, not even the closest people to you, can define your worth. You're not defined by what others think of you. You're not defined by your successes or failures. You are simply you. And in that simplicity, there's profound peace. Imagine the freedom of walking through life without constantly worrying about how you are perceived. Imagine not needing anyone's approval to feel good about yourself. This doesn't mean you will never care for others, or that you will stop being compassionate or loving. In fact, when you stop clinging to your emotions, you become more present, more genuinely connected with others. You're not trying to get something from them or make them feel a certain way. You're simply able to give and receive love without attachment. Buddhism teaches us that attachment is the root of suffering. We get attached to people, to outcomes, to ideas, and when things don't go the way we expect, we suffer. But when you learn to detach, you allow life to unfold naturally. You let go of the constant need to control everything. And in that letting go, you create space for peace. You allow yourself to simply be without the weight of expectations pulling you down. Detachment also brings clarity. When you stop clinging to your emotions, you can see things as they truly are. You stop reacting impulsively. Instead, you can respond with wisdom and compassion. You stop acting out of fear or insecurity. Instead, you act from a place of calm understanding. And this, my dear friend, is where true freedom lies. Now, let's take a moment to reflect on something important. Imagine you are holding onto a rope that is tied to a heavy weight. Every time you hold onto the rope, the weight pulls you down. But if you simply let go of the rope, the weight will fall away. It's the same with emotions. When you cling to anger, sadness, or fear, it weighs you down. But when you let go, the weight disappears and you are free. This doesn't mean you become indifferent to the world or to other people. It means you stop letting the world control you. You stop letting the opinions of others shape your sense of self. You stop letting the fear of what might happen tomorrow steal your peace today. Instead, you accept the impermanence of life. You recognize that everything, including your emotions, is temporary. One of the most powerful practices in Buddhism is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the art of being present in the moment, without judgment. It is the practice of observing your thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. When you practice mindfulness, you begin to see that your thoughts and feelings are just that, thoughts and feelings. They are not permanent. They do not define you. They come and they go just like clouds in the sky. When you start to detach from the need to control your emotions, you will notice something incredible happening. You begin to experience life more fully. You're no longer caught up in the past or the future. You are simply present. And in that presence, you find peace. You find the freedom to be yourself without the weight of expectations or the need for approval. True emotional freedom is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending that everything is fine when it's not. It's about accepting your emotions without letting them rule your life. It's about realizing that you are not your emotions. You're not the anger, the sadness, or the joy that you feel. You are the one who experiences them, and in that awareness, you find peace. Detachment also allows you to let go of the need for control. So often, we try to control the people around us, the situations in our lives, and even our own emotions. But the more we try to control, the more we create suffering. When you detach, you surrender to the flow of life. You trust that things will unfold as they are meant to, without your constant interference. This doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent to the world. It means you learn to engage with life from a place of inner peace, not from a place of fear or insecurity. You act when needed, but you do not attach to the outcome. You are not driven by the need to control or to be seen in a certain light. You simply live your life, moment by moment, with clarity and grace. When you learn to detach from your emotions, you become like the sky. The sky is vast and open, and while clouds may come and go, the sky itself remains unchanged. Your emotions, like clouds, will pass, but your true nature, the peaceful awareness within you, will remain unchanged. And this is where true freedom lies. In the end, detachment is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It is about freeing yourself from the bondage of your emotions and your attachments. It is about realizing that you are not your emotions, and you are not defined by what others think of you. You are simply a person who experiences life moment by moment. And in that simplicity, you find true peace. So, let go of the need to control. Let go of the need to be seen. Let go of the need for approval. And in doing so, you will discover a freedom that will transform your life. Seeing clearly, the Buddhist view on self and ego. In Buddhism, we learn that the ego is like a shadow. It follows us wherever we go, but it isn't truly us. The more we focus on it, the more it appears to grow, but in reality, it's just an illusion. Imagine trying to catch your own shadow. No matter how fast you move or how hard you try, it always stays one step ahead. This is how the ego works. It is an illusion, a creation of the mind, and the more we chase it, the more we become entangled in its web. You may think you're your thoughts, your emotions, or your appearance, but the truth is much simpler than that. You're not the thoughts that come and go in your mind. You are not the emotions that rise and fall like waves on the ocean. And you are certainly not the body you inhabit. These things are temporary, changing constantly, and they don't define you. The Buddha taught that attachment to the self is the root of suffering. When we hold tightly to the idea of who we think we are, we create a prison for ourselves. This prison is built on the idea that we must protect this self-image at all costs. We fear criticism, rejection, and failure because we believe these things threaten the very identity we have built. But the more we cling to this fragile self, the more we create suffering for ourselves. It's important to understand that the self, as we know it, is not a fixed, unchanging thing. It is made up of countless moments, thoughts, and experiences. The I that you think of as yourself is constantly changing. The person you were yesterday is not the same person you are today, and the person you will be tomorrow will be different still. Our identities are fluid, shaped by our environment, our relationships, and our perceptions. They are not permanent, and yet we hold on to them as though they are. This is where the ego comes in. The ego is a construct of the mind, built from the need to protect this ever-changing self. It tells you that you need to be someone important, someone recognized, someone who stands out. It pushes you to strive for success, to seek validation from others, and to protect your image at all costs. But this pursuit of validation only deepens the illusion. The more you try to protect the ego, the more you feed it, and the more it controls your life. But the Buddha's teachings offer a way out of this trap. He encouraged us to look beyond the ego, to see clearly what lies beneath. When we stop identifying with the ego, we can begin to experience life as it truly is, without the distortion of self-centered desires. We can begin to see the world and others as they are, without the need to constantly compare ourselves to them or seek approval. Think about the times when you've felt at peace, when you've been fully immersed in a moment, not thinking about yourself, not worrying about what others think. In those moments, you are free from the grip of the ego. You are simply present, experiencing life as it is, without the filter of self-judgment or fear. This is the essence of the Buddha's teachings. He did not ask us to deny the self, but to understand it for what it truly is, a fleeting, ever-changing collection of thoughts and experiences. He encouraged us to let go of our attachment to this self, to stop identifying so strongly with it, and to allow ourselves to simply be. When we do this, we begin to see the world with new eyes. The problem is that most of us spend our lives looking through the lens of ego. We interpret everything we see and experience through the filter of I, me, and mine. We measure everything by how it affects us, how it makes us feel, or how it compares to others. This is what causes so much suffering. We become trapped in a cycle of wanting, comparing, and striving. We constantly chase after things that we believe will make us happy, but once we get them, we realize that they don't bring lasting peace. The ego always wants more, always demands attention, always seeks validation. When we begin to see clearly, we realize that true happiness does not come from outside. It doesn't come from approval or success. It comes from within. It comes from understanding that the ego is not who we truly are. It comes from letting go of the need to prove ourselves, to be someone important, to be noticed. When we stop feeding the ego, we stop creating the conditions for suffering to arise. This is not an easy process. Letting go of the ego is not something that happens overnight. It requires practice, patience, and mindfulness. But every time we become aware of our thoughts and actions, every time we notice when the ego is taking control, we take a step closer to freedom. We begin to see the world more clearly, without the distortion of self-centered desires. One of the key practices in Buddhism is mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in the moment. When we practice mindfulness, we start to notice when the ego is influencing our thoughts and behaviors. We begin to recognize that our thoughts are not who we are, that our emotions are not permanent, and that our identity is not fixed. We begin to see that we are simply a part of the larger flow of life, not separate from it, and not the center of it. This understanding brings peace. It frees us from the constant need to protect our image, to prove our worth, and to seek approval. When we see clearly, we no longer feel the need to compete with others or compare ourselves to them. We understand that everyone is on their own journey, and that we are all interconnected. The ego loses its power over us, and we become more compassionate, more patient, and more loving. The Buddha's teachings remind us that we are not our ego. We are not our thoughts, our emotions, or our experiences. We are simply the awareness behind them. When we see clearly, we recognize that we are part of a much larger whole, and that our true nature is peace, wisdom, and compassion. In this way, seeing clearly is not just about understanding the ego. It's about seeing the world and ourselves in a new light. It's about letting go of the need to control, to protect, and to be seen. It's about realizing that we are enough, just as we are, without the need to prove it to anyone. This is the path to freedom. The freedom that comes from seeing clearly, from understanding who we truly are, and from letting go of the illusion of the ego. It's a path that leads to peace, contentment, and a deeper connection to the world around us. When we walk this path, we no longer feel the need to chase after validation or approval. We simply live fully and freely as we are. And in that freedom, we find true happiness. Living without expectation, the path to inner peace. When we go through life with expectations, it's like we're holding a heavy bag, always waiting for it to be filled with something. We expect people to behave a certain way, to react the way we want, to meet our needs exactly how we think they should. But this bag is never full. The weight of our expectations never lets us feel light. Imagine a tree standing in the wind. It doesn't expect the wind to blow a certain way. It just stands. It's not bothered by whether the wind is gentle or harsh, because it knows it cannot control the wind. The tree's strength comes from its roots, not from how the wind blows. It doesn't try to change the wind. It just grows calmly, naturally. It doesn't have expectations about the weather because it knows life will change, but it can remain grounded no matter what. Our lives are like that tree. We expect many things, and when they don't happen, we suffer. We wait for the world to be the way we want it to be, and we forget that life is always changing. If we live expecting things to stay the same, to always go our way, we will be disappointed. But when we learn to let go of expectations, we can stand like the tree, rooted in the moment, not swayed by what is outside of us. In Buddhism, it's taught that desire and expectation are the roots of suffering. We desire a perfect life, perfect relationships, perfect outcomes. But when things don't go as planned, we feel disappointed, frustrated, even angry. We wonder why the world isn't meeting our needs. We ask, why isn't this happening for me? But the truth is, life isn't meant to meet our expectations. It's not here to satisfy every craving we have. It's a flowing river, constantly moving, changing, and adapting. This doesn't mean we shouldn't have dreams or goals. But when we place our happiness and peace in the hands of our expectations, we make our happiness fragile. We give our peace away to the uncertain future, and that is a loss. Peace doesn't come from getting everything we want. It comes from knowing that we don't need anything outside of us to be okay. Think about a time when things didn't go as planned. Maybe you had an idea of how a conversation would go, or how a trip should have turned out, but it didn't. How did you feel? Disappointed? Frustrated? Sad? When our expectations are not met, we feel a sense of loss. But if we let go of the need for things to be a certain way, we start to feel a sense of freedom. We stop trying to control the future and begin to trust the present. When we hold on to expectations, we also hold on to judgments. We judge others for not meeting our expectations. We judge ourselves for not doing enough or being enough. These judgments create a wall between us and the world, between us and the people around us. The more we expect from others, the more disappointed we become when they fall short. And the more we expect from ourselves, the harder we are on ourselves when we don't measure up. But Buddhism teaches us a different way, to let go of expectations and judgments. When we let go of these, we let go of suffering. When we no longer demand that life meet our standards, we begin to experience life as it is, in all its beauty and imperfection. And in this acceptance, peace arises. Living without expectation isn't about giving up on dreams. It's about releasing the need for things to happen the way we imagine. It's about trusting that life will unfold as it is meant to, without us having to control every moment. When we live this way, we begin to experience freedom. We are no longer slaves to our desires or our need for approval. This doesn't mean that we don't try. It doesn't mean that we don't take action, but it means that we act without clinging to outcomes. We work, we love, we dream, but we don't hold on to the idea that things must go exactly as we expect. We trust that, no matter what happens, we will be okay. Let's take an example. Suppose you're working on a project at work or at home. You have a vision of how it should turn out. You put in effort, you plan, you organize. But as you move forward, things start to go differently than you thought. Maybe there are delays, or maybe the results aren't exactly what you expected. How do you feel? Do you feel frustrated or disappointed? Or do you accept the changes, knowing that things are unfolding as they need to? When you stop expecting perfection, you can see things more clearly. You can embrace the lessons in each moment, rather than focusing on what's wrong. You can see the beauty in the way life unfolds, even when it doesn't go the way you thought. And in that acceptance, peace is born. It's important to remember that expectations often come from fear. We fear that we won't be happy unless things happen a certain way. We fear that we will lose control, or that we won't be able to handle what life throws our way. But fear is not a foundation for peace. Peace comes from surrendering to life as it is. It comes from trusting that everything, even the difficult moments, are part of the journey. Living without expectation is not about being passive. It's about being active in the present moment. It's about doing your best and letting go of the need for things to go your way. It's about releasing the need for approval and trusting that, regardless of the outcome, you are enough. This is the path to inner peace. When we let go of expectations, we free ourselves from the prison of constantly seeking approval, success, or validation from outside sources. We learn to accept ourselves, our circumstances, and others just as they are. We learn to trust that everything we need is already within us, and that the world will unfold as it should, whether or not we expect it. Peace comes when we stop demanding from life. Peace comes when we trust that we are enough, just as we are. Peace comes when we stop struggling to control the future and learn to embrace the present. And this peace, this deep, unshakable peace, is the reward of living without expectation. The freedom of not being noticed. Imagine you're walking down the street, and everyone around you is caught up in their own busy world. The noise of their thoughts, their plans, their conversations fills the air. But what if you could walk through all this, unnoticed by them, yet free from the need to be seen? What if, instead of seeking attention or approval, you found peace in being invisible to the world? It might sound strange, but in the heart of Buddhism, there's a profound truth about this very idea. The world is so full of distractions, so full of people trying to make their mark, that the concept of being noticed becomes more of a burden than a blessing. Every moment we crave attention, approval, recognition, we are trapped in the belief that we need others to validate our existence. And this belief is the source of much of our suffering. Now, you may be wondering, but isn't it natural to want to be seen, to feel appreciated? Yes, it is. As humans, we are social beings. We thrive on connection, and being acknowledged by others is part of that. However, there's a deeper freedom that comes when we can let go of the need to be constantly noticed. When we live in constant expectation of being seen or recognized, we begin to shape our lives around the opinions of others. Our actions become driven by the need for external validation, and this can make us feel empty, unfulfilled, and anxious. The more we seek this validation, the more we become trapped in a cycle of seeking approval, never quite satisfied, always chasing something outside of ourselves. Buddhism teaches us to turn inward, to look beyond the need for recognition. The concept of non-self, Anita, is central to understanding this. The idea is that the self we create, the one that wants to be seen and heard, is not a permanent or fixed entity. It is just a collection of thoughts, feelings, and experiences that change moment to moment. The moment we believe that we are the self that others should recognize, we are caught in an illusion. The truth is, the self we're clinging to does not even exist in the way we think it does. The freedom of not being noticed comes from realizing that the need to be seen by others is not what defines us. It is not our outward appearance, our social status, or our achievements that give our life meaning. Rather, it is our inner state of peace, our ability to be present in the moment, and our understanding of the impermanence of everything around us. When we stop measuring our worth based on external validation, we begin to experience true freedom. In Buddhism, we learn to cultivate mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in the moment, without judgment, without the need to perform for anyone else. When we are mindful, we are not concerned with how others perceive us. We simply are. We experience life without the filter of expectations, without the weight of trying to prove something to others. This is the freedom that comes with non-attachment, the freedom to be without needing anyone to notice. Imagine walking into a room and not feeling the need to impress anyone, not needing to explain yourself, not looking for approval. You simply exist in the space, content with who you are. This is a powerful state to be in. It is the state of inner peace, where your worth is not determined by others, but by your own sense of being. In this space, there is no anxiety, no fear of judgment, and no need for recognition. Of course, this doesn't mean that you stop interacting with the world or withdraw from relationships. It simply means that you no longer base your happiness on the approval of others. You can still connect with people, love, care, and contribute to the world around you. But you do so without the burden of needing to be seen or validated. Your actions become pure, free from the expectations of others. When you live without the need to be noticed, you begin to experience life with more joy and ease. You stop holding on to the opinions of others because you realize that they are just passing thoughts in the minds of people who are also caught in their own struggles. People are not always paying as much attention to you as you think they are. Most of the time, they're too caught up in their own lives, their own worries, to even notice yours. And this is a liberating truth. When we let go of the need to be noticed, we free ourselves from the weight of comparison. We stop measuring ourselves against others, and we stop feeling less than or superior to anyone. We are simply who we are, no more, no less. And this is enough. In Buddhism, we are taught to let go of the desire for recognition because it is a source of suffering. When we base our happiness on how others perceive us, we are always at the mercy of their judgments. But when we can let go of this attachment, we find that we no longer need others to define us. We are free to define ourselves by the peace within, by the love we give, and by the kindness we offer. The beauty of this freedom is that it allows us to live more authentically. When you're no longer concerned with how others see you, you can simply be yourself. And being yourself is enough. You don't need to try to be someone else or fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. You are free to express your true nature, to live with compassion, and to contribute to the world without the burden of seeking recognition. This freedom also brings peace into our relationships. When we no longer need to be noticed, we can engage with others without the expectation of receiving something in return. We give without the need for validation, love without the need for acknowledgement. And this creates deeper, more meaningful connections with those around us. When we stop seeking to be noticed, we stop placing expectations on others. We accept them for who they are, without the need for them to perform for us. This creates a space where true love and compassion can flourish. In this space, we can be present with others without trying to change them or make them fit into our own narrow view of who they should be. We simply love them as they are. As you go through your day, try to remember this freedom. When you find yourself seeking attention, recognition, or validation, take a moment to pause and reflect. Are you seeking approval because you believe it will bring you happiness? Can you let go of this desire and just be? Can you find peace in knowing that you are enough, just as you are, whether or not anyone notices? This is the freedom of not being noticed, the freedom to simply exist, to be present, and to live with peace. The more we embrace this freedom, the less we are affected by the judgments of others, and the more we can experience life as it is, without the burden of comparison or expectation. This is the path to true happiness, the path to inner peace. When we stop needing to be noticed, we begin to notice the beauty of life itself. We see the world with clearer eyes, free from the fog of self-consciousness. We see the people around us as they truly are, without the filters of judgment and expectation. And in this seeing, we find a deep connection to life, a connection that is not based on the approval of others, but on the simple truth that we are all part of this vast, interconnected world. So, let go of the need to be noticed. Let go of the desire for recognition, and find the freedom that comes when you realize that you are enough, just as you are. The world will continue to turn, whether or not you're noticed. And in this freedom, you will find peace, joy, and a deeper connection to yourself and the world around you. You are enough, ending the war within. The world moves, and you move with it. Sometimes it feels like you're caught in its tide, struggling to swim, fighting against currents that seem relentless. It's easy to feel like you're being swept away, that you need to grasp onto something, anything to stay afloat. You search for meaning in what others think, in how they perceive you, or in what they expect from you. It's like constantly trying to keep up with a clock that never stops ticking, a clock that doesn't care whether you're ready or not. But what if, instead of fighting the flow, you simply let it carry you? What if you stop seeing yourself as an outsider, always trying to measure up, always feeling like you have to be more, do more, become more. What if you could understand, deeply and without question, that you are already enough, just as you are, without needing to prove anything to anyone? It's common to feel like we have to fight our inner struggles, to wrestle with the thoughts and emotions that stir within us. We convince ourselves that we are incomplete, that we need something from the outside world to feel whole. Whether it's approval, validation, or recognition, we chase after these things as if they're the key to our happiness. But what if the real peace lies in realizing that all along, everything you need is already within you? Buddhism teaches us that we are often trapped by the stories we tell ourselves. We create narratives in our minds about who we are, who we should be, and what the world expects of us. These stories can imprison us, making us feel small, unworthy, or disconnected from the truth of who we are. We spend so much of our lives believing these stories, we forget to ask, who am I without these labels, without these comparisons, without all this noise? To live fully in the present moment, we must first let go of the need for external validation. We must realize that life is not about fitting into someone else's picture of who we should be. It's about shedding the expectations and assumptions that others have placed on us and returning to the simplicity of our true nature. You are not defined by your achievements, your possessions, or your social status. You are not defined by the number of likes on your post or the approval of those around you. You are defined by your being. Just by existing, you are enough. This may sound simple, even obvious, yet it is one of the hardest things for us to truly accept. We live in a world that constantly tells us to do more, be more, achieve more. It tells us that we are only valuable if we have something to prove, something to show for our efforts. But the truth is different. The more we try to prove ourselves, the more we distance ourselves from the truth of who we are. Imagine a tree standing tall in a forest. It doesn't seek validation from other trees. It doesn't compare itself to the tree next to it. It simply grows, rooted in the earth, reaching for the sun. It doesn't strive for anything. It simply is. And that is enough. The tree is not worried about whether it's the tallest, the oldest, or the most beautiful. It simply exists with full acceptance of its place in the world. And in doing so, it brings beauty and peace to everything around it. The same is true for you. You don't need to strive to be someone else, to prove your worth, or to seek recognition. You are already a part of this world, just as you are. You don't need anyone's approval to be worthy of love, respect, or happiness. Your worth is inherent, not based on external measures. When you stop trying to be something you're not, you open yourself to the truth of who you are. You can live fully, without fear, without the constant anxiety of needing to prove yourself. Of course, this doesn't mean that you should stop growing or evolving. Life is about learning, evolving, and becoming more aligned with who you truly are. But growth doesn't come from comparison or competition. It comes from understanding that you are already complete, just as you are. Growth comes from shedding the layers of doubt, fear, and insecurity that cover up your true self. It comes from embracing who you are and allowing yourself to be fully present in your own life. The war within us often comes from the tension between who we are and who we think we should be. We judge ourselves, criticize ourselves, and feel like we're never enough. But when we stop fighting ourselves, when we let go of the constant battle to meet some external standard, we find peace. True peace comes from within. It comes from understanding that you are already enough. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to change to be loved, to be worthy, or to be whole. You are enough, just as you are. It's important to remember that this doesn't mean you should stop striving to improve or to better yourself. But the key is in how you approach this. When you understand that your worth is not defined by your achievements, you can pursue growth without the burden of self-doubt. You can take actions because they bring you joy or fulfillment, not because they are required to earn their worth. You can embrace your imperfections, knowing that they don't diminish who you are. In fact, they make you human, and that is enough. So, in the next moment, when you feel that nagging voice in your head telling you that you are not enough, that you need to do more or be more, take a deep breath. Stop, listen, and remember, you are already whole. You don't need anyone's approval to be enough. You don't need a change to be loved. You are already worthy, just as you are. The peace you seek is already within you. Let go of the idea that you need to fight or struggle for your place in this world. Let go of the idea that you need to prove yourself. And let yourself be fully and completely. When you do this, you will find that the world begins to shift. You will stop feeling like you're constantly chasing something you can never catch. You will stop feeling like you have to fight for every inch of happiness. Because you will realize that happiness is not something to chase. It is something that comes naturally when you stop fighting against yourself. You are enough. And the sooner you accept this, the sooner you will experience the peace that has always been waiting for you. You are enough. Ending the war within. Sit down gently wherever you are. Breathe slowly. Let the noise of the world settle for just a moment. You have walked far to reach this point. You have listened, reflected, and looked inside your heart through all the parts of this journey. And now, dear one, we arrive at the truth that you are enough. You always were. From the beginning, your mind searched for something. Love, recognition, peace. You believed it was out there, in other people, in their words, their eyes, their approval. And each time you didn't receive it, you hurt. You thought you were not seen. You thought you were not valued. But it was not because you were not enough. It was because you were looking outside when the answer was always inside. The Buddha taught that suffering comes from craving for things to be different from how they are. You crave to be understood, to be praised, to be remembered. But not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will see your pain. And that is not your failure. That is life. Everyone is walking with their own wounds. Everyone is busy surviving their own storm. So today, you stop the search. You stop waiting for the world to validate your soul. You don't need 1,000 followers or a room full of applause to prove you exist. You are here. You are breathing. And that is enough. Look at a tree. It stands tall, without asking anyone to notice it. The moon glows quietly, even when no one is awake to see it. The river flows without applause. They're not trying to prove anything. They simply are. That is your true nature too. When you say, no one cares about me, what you may really mean is, I wish someone would understand my heart. And that is human. But instead of drowning in that wish, try sitting with it. Try saying, even if no one understands, I understand myself. That is the beginning of real peace. You are not alone. All beings suffer in some way. But we add layers of pain by judging ourselves, by comparing ourselves, by thinking we should be someone else. Drop that burden. There is nothing wrong with you. Your tears are not weakness. Your quiet moments are not emptiness. Your gentle heart is not a flaw. Many people go through their entire lives never hearing these words. You are enough. But I want you to hear it now, from my heart to yours. You are not broken. You do not need fixing. You need understanding. And that understanding must come from within. If you feel invisible, then be the one who sees yourself clearly. If you feel unheard, then listen deeply to your own needs. If you feel unloved, then become the source of love. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a calm, steady way. Like a candle lighting its own flame in the dark. The world may never fully see your worth. But that's okay. Buddhism teaches us that freedom begins when we stop needing the world to give us what we already have inside. Let go of the war in your mind. The arguments, the doubts, the harsh voices that say you're not enough. They're lies born from fear. You were born with light. You are made of the same stillness as the mountain, the same clarity as the sky. You are not your failures. You are not your mistakes. You are not your past. You are awareness. You are presence. And you are here. That is all that matters. Let this be the day you stop overthinking. Let this be the day you release the need to be perfect, liked, accepted. Just be. You have walked through all the pain, the stories, the noise. You have looked behind a curtain. And what you have found is not emptiness, but simplicity. Not nothingness, but peace. Your worth does not depend on anyone's attention. You are not here to impress the world. You are here to experience this life with honesty and kindness. Speak kindly to yourself. Rest often. Breathe deeply. Smile gently, even if no one sees. These are small acts of awakening. There is no final destination. No perfect self waiting for you. You're already whole. The journey was never about becoming something else. It was about remembering who you really are beneath all the noise. From this moment on, let your heart be soft. Let your thoughts be light. Let your spirit be free. Thank you for staying till the end. This path is not easy, but it is true. If these words touched you, help them reach someone else who may be lost in thought, drowning in silence. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% subscribed. So please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel Wisdom Woven. And before you go, drop your thoughts in the comments. First, write Namo Buddha to stay energized and to remind yourself that you are on a path of awakening. May your mind be still, may your heart be full, and may you never forget, you are already enough.